A Sunset in Time by Albinocore. Chapter 6. Storm Clouds Ablaze. Sunset woke the next morning to the warm rays of the sun heating her face. She grunted and squeezed her eyes tighter, throwing the blankets over her head to block the light. She could hear birds singing right outside her window. It quickly became irritating. Her horn lit up. A silencing spell covered the window. Before the blinds fell in front of them, casting the room in quiet shadows. Sunset was never a morning pony. She rested her head against the plush pillow and allowed her mind to go blank, enjoying the sweet silence. Despite the events of the previous night, she had been able to get a good night's sleep. Now, she just wanted to enjoy the well-rested feeling she had, as well as the incredibly soft bed she was lying in. 10 more minutes of sleep wouldn't hurt any pony. There was a loud pounding at the door.
Miss Shimmer, this is your wake-up call. Breakfast is being served in the dining hall.
Sunset started and swore under her breath with the sudden noise. So much for that. She sat up and rubbed sleep from her eyes. Thank you, she said groggily. She heard the guard march away and flopped back down to the bed. 5 more minutes. She grinned, closing her eyes.
Hey, Sunset!
Spike's voice called out over the loud knocking.
You up yet?
I am now, she said in a low growl. In a louder voice, she said, Yes, Spike. What do you need?
I just thought you want somebody to talk to you, walk you to the dining hall for breakfast.
Uh-huh. He wants something. Sunset rolled out of her bed and stretched her host, deciding to play along. Sir Spike, just give me a minute. Spike agreed, and Sunset could hear him begin to hum to himself outside the door. She went to the balcony window and threw the curtains open again, letting the morning sun back into the room. She removed the sound-blocking spell and listened to the birds chirping outside. Sunset admitted they sounded nice when she wasn't trying to sleep. She turned around to look at her bedroom for the first time since she had arrived. It was a circular space, much like the guest room in Twilight's library, with an adjoining bathroom. The velvet carpet was a rich shade of purple, with the walls painted a similar color. A vanity sat across the bed, and Sunset spotted a brush lying on the table. Something she was grateful for when she saw her mane in the mirror. She had the worst case of bed mane she had ever seen herself, struck out at odd angles and completely covered her horn. If Sunset had walked out like that, she was certain Rarity would have a panic attack. She brushed out her hair to resemble something presentable, while Spike had taken to whistling as he waited on her. After Sunset managed her mane, she quickly washed up in the bathroom. She was aware how impatient boys were and didn't want Spike to wait too long. Upon how she looked, Sunset snatched her hourglass necklace off the bedside table and threw it around her neck, reminding Spike outside in the hall. In twiddling his claws and whistling an off-key song, when Sunset stepped outside the door. Good morning, Spike, she said, giving him a proper greeting.
Morning, he said. Did you sleep well last night?
Sunset shrugged. After her strange dream, her sleep had been pretty restful. It was good enough.
That's good. You looked kind of sick after the talk with the princesses last night. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Sunset giggled. Thank you, Spike. They continued their walk in silence, each of them admiring the collection of paintings lining the walls, separated by the bleached marble columns. Guards were posted at every window and corridor intersection, standing as still as statues. Sunset cleared his throat, grabbing Sunset's attention. He didn't look in her direction, but said,
just so you know, totally believe you about the future thing.
Ah, I can see where this is going. Thank you. That means a lot.
Anytime. So I was wondering.
Spike, I'm not telling you anything about the future. Spike looked at her with a mixture of shock and disappointment.
What? Why not?
Sunset blew a straight strand of hair out of her face. Because if I tell you something, you might change the fence so it doesn't happen. Something else happens instead.
Isn't that what you're doing? He pointed a claw at her.
Sunset stopped walking, Spike's words having poked a hole in her argument. Well, yes, she stammered, trying to find a counter-argument. But I'm doing it for a good reason. What I'm trying to do is help everyone. There aren't any repercussions for making sure a crazy alicorn doesn't destroy the world.
Yeah, but since you're already changing the future, what's the harm in telling me mine? It'll just stay you, won't it?
Sunset was surprised by his reasoning. She had been hoping he'd give up at her first argument. Well, yes, it's a possibility. She reasoned. I'm just changing one event. Yes, it affects the entire world, but it doesn't affect everyone's individual lives. If that makes sense. Spike scratched his head.
Sort of.
Okay, she ran a hoof through her mane, trying to think. It's like this. If Mr. Radius tried to take over Equestria and failed, so she got sealed away and broke free, and, those two events had little to do with everyone's lives in between. So, if I told you your future, you might purposely change it from what would normally happen.
Oh, come on!
Spike whined.
Telling me a few things about the future isn't going to change anything. It's like looking at the end of the story. Just because you know how it ends isn't going to change anything. It's just a sneak peek.
No, it's a spoiler. And I hate spoilers. I will sunset on this. Sunset's stomach gave a growl, prompting her to resume walking. Besides, by using a book as an example, you're implying destiny is set in stone.
But what if it is?
Sunset gave Spike a hard look. If I believe that, I would better come back in time. She shook her head. Everyone has choices, Spike. We aren't just pawns being pushed by fate.
I guess. But what about Twilight? Princess Celestia said it was her destiny to become an alicorn.
Sunset, I got this one. Spike. Because destiny says you are meant to become something, doesn't automatically mean you're going to achieve it. For instance, if one was destined to, say, become a leader, if he doesn't have the leadership skills or lessons learned, he's not going to achieve it. He may be destined to, but he can still fail it. Which is why I love American Pop so much. Celestia says a lot of things. Doesn't mean you're all true. Celestia almost said that out loud, but paused and held her tongue. Instead, she said, well, perhaps there's a greater design for each of us. But our choice whether or not we take the steps to pursue it. Spike crossed his arms, sour look on his face.
Jeez, you really are a Twilight student.
I thank you.
Sunset looked pleased with herself. Come on, can you just give me a hint?
No, Spike.
A tiny one? No. Please? No. Pretty please? No! Urgh!
Spike threw his hands in the air.
Come on! Just tell me if I get wings or not.
Sunset let out an exasperated sigh. Fine, she relented. Telling him that piece of information couldn't change anything. Just make him eager. Yes, you get wings later on.
Yes!
Spike punched the air. Began dancing around Sunset as they continued to the dining hall.
Can't believe it. I'll go get wings. I get to fly.
He looked around, flapped his arms like they were wings. Sunset couldn't help but grin at his happiness. Though he made a solemn vow not to become everyone's personal fortune teller. Regardless of whether or not it would change things, she knew it would become annoying very fast. The duo reached the dining hall and found 5 of their friends sitting at the table, eating from a large buffet of breakfast food. There was a exchange of greetings, and Sunset took a seat near the end of the long table, next to Pinkie Pie, while Spike took an empty seat next to Rarity. Good morning, Spike, Rarity said sweetly. Just what has you grinning so broadly today? Spike bounced up and down in his chair.
Sunset just told me I'm going to get wings in the future!
Sunset stopped in mid-reach for a bowl of fruit, gave Spike a very sour look. Although she hadn't implied it was a secret, Sunset hoped Spike would use a little more discretion. Sunset, have you met Spike? Pinkie prodded Sunset in his shoulder.
Don't even ask me. Do I sound the world's biggest party? Do the cakes ever tell me where falls come from? Ooh, do I get wings?
Sunset leaned her cheek on her hoof. Pinkie, why would you get wings? Pinkie shrugged.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Alright, let me make this clear right now. Sunset looked at everyone gathered at the table. I'm not going to tell you anything more than necessary about the future, so please don't ask. Voice was firm, but not unkind. Twilight, Fluttershy, and Applejack nodded in understanding. Rarity struck her bottom lip out, pouting before an Applejack nudged her shoulder. Seaside nodded as well. Pinkie slid to her chair and let out an awe of disappointment. Spike was dancing in his chair, celebrating the good news. With that out of the way, Sunset picked a strawberry from her fruit bowl and bit into it, appeasing her rowdy stomach. Breakfast was a quiet affair for Spike's occasional bouts of I'm getting wings. While Sunset had been rather hungry, what she ate was nothing compared to Pinkie. She watched in awe as Pinkie scarfed down half of the entire table, acting like it was nothing. It wasn't until most of the food was gone that Rainbow Dash decided to float through the dining room door, yawning and rubbing her eyes.
Nasty you to foul join those living folk, nice.
Applejack smirked. Rainbow ignored her and went straight for the food, leaving a disgruntled groan when she saw how much was left.
What, you guys didn't see me, eh?
Well, perhaps if you gotten up a little earlier, there would have been more for you to eat, Verity said. Rainbow mumbled something under her breath and started putting what food she could onto her plate. Dropping down next to Fluttershy once he had finished scavenging. Noticing the small amount of food on Rainbow's plate, Fluttershy pushed her own towards the starving pony.
Here, Rainbow. I'm done with mine so you can have it.
Rainbow quickly tore into what was left of Fluttershy's waffles, saying,
Thank you.
only after her mouth was completely full, spreading bits of food across the table. Rarity scrunched her face in repulsion.
Hey, Rainbow, guess what?
Spike grinned from ear to ear. Rainbow made a noise, stirring Spike as she was listening as she ate her breakfast.
Sunset told me I'm gonna get wings. Do you think you can sell me some of your meals when they come in?
Rainbow died and started to bite into a pear. She stopped to look to Sunset despite to bet the Sunset.
So he gets wings, huh?
Sunset popped a grape into her mouth and said, Yep.
Uh-huh. So then, what happens to me?
Sorry, Rainbow, but I already told the others I'm not going to play fortune teller for all of you. Rainbow rolled her eyes and went back to her pear, taking rather harsh bites out of it. Sunset's concern was if Rainbow still didn't trust her, or really was just grousing in the morning. Fly cleared her throat, bringing everyone's attention to her.
Now that everybody is here, we can get started. Our mission today is to go to the Cloudsdale and research!
Fly was practically glowing at the prospect of pouring over Pegasus lore.
The two most likely locations for any information regarding the Tempest crowd are the Cloudsdale History Museum and the library, of course. So we'll split into two teams when we get there, do some research, and hopefully come up with a lead.
Fly took on a more serious expression. Celestia also said there's a good chance Vesper Radiance is already looking into the Tempest crown, meaning there's a possibility she might be there as well, so be on your guard.
Good!
Rainbow finished her pear and dropped it on an empty plate.
Faster we find her, the faster we can kick her flank and call it a day, right?
Twilight gave a half nod. Stopping Vesper Radiance is important, but Celestia agrees that all the Dark Regalia should be destroyed. That way, we don't have to worry about any point trying to misuse them again.
Alright, fine. We find some old artifacts, kick some air's flank.
Rainbow got up and stretched out her wings.
Let's get this show on the road. Kinda looking forward to flying around Cloudsdale again.
She said with enthusiasm returning to her voice.
That'd be a nice visit.
Fluttershy agreed. I'd love to go sightseeing too, girls, but we have a job to do. Can't afford to get too distracted. Yeah, Sunset said. We already knew where the Alicorn amulet was. Who knows how close he is to finding out where the other pieces are.
Well then, what are we waiting for?
Vicky looked for a chair and headed out the door.
Come on, ponies! We have a world to save! Again?
Twilight snatched her saddle bag from underneath her seat, followed Pinky out the door. The rest of the group right behind her. Our balloons should be waiting outside in the courtyard. She glanced at Present Company again. It might be a tight fit. Again. Sunset watched Caroline shrink into the mountainside until it was the solid of its doll house. The hot air balloon sailed on the wind, climbing higher and higher into the sky. Below them, the unicorn rain spiraled out for miles, its rolling past the hills, varying hues of yellows and greens, creating a vibrant picture worthy of summertime. Desert farms were scattered about, no doubt with microscopic ponies tilling the fertile land. While the land looked warm and welcoming, the air up in the sky became cold with rising altitude. The crowded basket allowed the ponies to stay mostly warm with their shared body heat, but the occasional gust of wind sent shivers across all their bodies. It's a snug fit with 6 ponies and a dragon, but the basket gave a little more room than the chariot had. Rainbow once again opted to fly the entire way. It was a slow-moving journey, with the balloon lazily riding the air currents towards the distant mass of white dots that was Cloudsdale. Piggy decided to pass the time by playing a game of I Spy.
I spy with my little eyes something at me is split.
Applejack held onto her hat so when picked up again. Is this the sky?
Nope.
Verity watched Rainbow pull a few loops diving out of the sky.
Is this Rainbow Dust? Yes.
Piggy got their heads together.
Okay, your turn, Mary. Then I spy.
Sunset tuned him out, looking over the edge of the basket to see where Rainbow had dived off to. She stuck her head out just in time to see a blue bird rocket up in front of her, with enough force to shake the balloon, sending to its passengers to the floor and the tangled limbs. Twilight was the first to pull herself out of the pile.
Rainbow, be careful! You almost knocked us out of the sky. Sorry, Twilight, Rainbow said, swinging back around. But you guys are going so slow and I am getting bored! Well, powering us for not being able to sprout wings and fly like you, Applejack said, pulling Pinky to her host. Twilight and Fluttershy exchanged looks and began to whistle nonchalantly. Hey, you're forgiven. Hey, why don't I just pull this thing the rest of the way? Gotta be faster than this. Twilight gave her a concerned look. I don't know, Rainbow. Do you think you can pull all of us? Piece of cake. Well, if you're sure. Twilight wanted to bound to a rope, tied one end to the front tether of the balloon, and were tossing the other end to Rainbow. She caught it in her mouth and shot off like a rocket, forcing everyone back to the floor. Since it regained her balance, it watched as the earth below became a hazy blur. Only looking up caused her eyes to wire as the wind slapped her in her face. She sat back down and decided to wait out the flight with her others, crammed together at the back of the basket. The white dots quickly morphed into a magnificent complex of clouds built on top of one another, creating several layers of a flowing ceiling. Elegant houses and buildings rose out of the clouds, made from the same fluffy material. Waterfalls and glittering rainbows cascaded out the sides of Cloudsdale, eventually turning to vapor. Rainbow slowed down and brought the balloon to a rest near the edge of the sea. She groped the road and panted, Okay, I know I said it'd be a piece of cake, but some of you really can't back on it. She glared at Pinky, who was the first to step out of the balloon, oblivious to Rainbow's implication. Sunset stepped onto the clouds. Twilight cast a cloud walking spell on everyone before they had left. Wasn't surprised to find it felt like walking on pillows. Alright, girls. Twilight turned off the balloon to burner, secured to a lamppost. We'll split up to cover more ground. Sunset, Spike, Fluttershy, and I will go to the library. Rainbow Dash, you lead Applejack, Pinky, and Rarity to the museum. It's noon, so we'll all be back here at 5 o'clock. Hopefully that should be more than enough time. Rainbow saluted. Roger, Twilight. Alright, team, follow me. And remember, keep your hose in the clouds at all times. We don't want a repeat of the Young Flyers competition. Ha ha, Rarity said unamused as the 4 ponies took off towards the heart of the city. Twilight faced her remaining company. Come on, guys, we got research to do. Spike groaned. It's like the Crystal Empire all over again. Come on, Spike, Sunset said, following after Twilight. Started walking towards the air city. Studying should be fun. Twilight looked back at him with the biggest smile Sunset had seen on her face. I taught you so well. Yeah, too well, Spike said under his breath. The group traveled across the bridge of solid clouds suspended over a rainbow river. The road took them through a residential area where several Pegasite folks were playing out in the streets. Some of them would pause and point, though Sunset wasn't sure it was because Twilight or in fact a unicorn and dragon were walking on the clouds. The further to Cloudsdale they got, the more fascinated Sunset became with the architecture. She found it hard to believe that every single thing was made from condensed clouds. She pressed her hoof against the column, finding it much harder than the road she was walking on, to the point where she could have sworn it was actually made out of marble if she had known better. Spike, however, ran his claws across the pillar and looked completely perplexed. I don't get it. How's a stone pillar sitting on a cloud? Oh no, Spike, Fluttershy said gently. It isn't really stone. It's just really dense. But everything in Cloudsdale is made from compressed clouds. That's how we build things. She gestured to a pillar road they were on. We use stratus clouds to lay the foundation, and build on top of them with denser clouds like cumulus. She pointed to the whispering whirls that making the base of the column. And we use cirrus clouds to decorate. Well, didn't know clouds could do that much, Spike said, now marveled by his surroundings. I know, it's all simply fascinating, Sunset said. Twilight eagerly nodded her head. Isn't it? Did you know, since the city in Everfree Forest was destroyed, Cloudsdale is Equestria's oldest city? Yeah, it dates back to just after the founding of Equestria. I heard the library is also one of the largest collective history books detailing life for Pegasite before Equestria. I know. If we were in a hurry, I'd love to read some of them. Spike looked at Fluttershy and said, Looks like Twilight found her long-lost twin. Fluttershy smiled. I think it's really nice Twilight has company to have conversations like this with. Twilight and Sunset continued their talk of history, exchanging little tidbits of fun facts of information. Sunset knew they were supposed to be preventing a calamity, but
At that moment in time, she was in paradise. She was back with her teacher, telling all that she had learned and listening to Twilight's vast wealth of knowledge. She looked up at the sweet blue sky and took a deep breath, savoring the moment. Sunset set out on one of the castle terraces. Princess Celestia sat with her, a white ring draped over her shoulder. The sky was a brilliant sea of blue, clear of any clouds. The two of them looked over the valley, admiring the picturesque view. Lying in the blanket underneath him was a picnic basket and a closed book.
Well, Celestia said, I think that's enough studying for today. You seem to know most of the material anyway.
She gave a slight chuckle. Sunset blushed to pull the sandwich out of her basket. She bit into it and looked at a tiny town that was Ponyville. Her gaze stretched to the lands beyond, endless plains and hills, all covered in emerald grass and summertime flowers. She couldn't believe the princess owned all of it. She looked up at a smiling Celestia.
What's it like, being a princess?
Celestia tilted her head back and gave a beautiful laugh that put the bells of Canterlot to shame.
Sometimes it isn't all that's made out to be. There are always papers that need to be signed, laws that need to be checked.
She bent down her head and whispered, and those stuffy nobles always want something from you. Sunset giggled and took Celestia in the eyes.
But there's good things too, right? I mean, you get to rule all of this.
She gestured to the landscape.
You have the power to raise the sun and tell other ponies what to do.
Being a princess isn't all about how much power you have, Sunset, but how you use it. However, waking up to all this every morning is always a pleasure. Maybe someday you'll find out yourself.
You mean I could be a princess?
Celestia looked up at the sky, knowing look in her eye. Anything's possible.
Sunset!
Sunset blinked, Twilight's voice drawing her back to the present. All three of her friends were looking at her with mild concern.
Are you okay?
Twilight asked.
You kind of just stopped and started staring into space.
Sorry, I was just taking in the moment is all. Sunset lied. Not now, she told her subconscious. Whatever this is, don't bother me right now.
Are you sure?
Fluttershy asked.
Do you need to sit down for a minute?
Sunset took her head, continued walking. Don't worry, I'm fine, I promise. She looked back and forced a smile. Twilight and Fluttershy still looked a little skeptical, but remained silent. Spike, however, just shrugged and fell out to step next to Sunset. The group continued down the road, crossing under an archway and opened up to a large pavilion. Booths and stalls were on every side, with ponies peddling their wares. Yet, in distance to the south inside the pavilion, several floated above the open sky. Pegasus flew overhead, making deals with shop owners, carrying bags filled with groceries. In the middle of the venue was a sign that said, "Watch for falling objects."
Oh, is this Cloudsdale's market?
Sunset asked, wanting to keep the conversation off of her.
Fluttershy nodded. Yes, this is one of the forums where everybody comes to sell and buy things. This is like Pineville, only...
She's pointing out to the stalls above them, saying on fluffy counts.
You don't have to worry about running out of room.
Walk across the Clouds Forum, politely ignoring the calls of shopkeepers offering deals. Beyond the market forum was a bridge hanging over open air that led to the commercial district. Spike looked over the rail and said, "Yeesh, this is a long way down." On the other clouds were huge, large, antique-looking buildings. They persisted at even intervals on both sides of the street, gradually sloping upwards towards the weather factory that sat on the top of the cloud. First, I led them down the street and around a corner, stopping at a large stone building. Rows of steps led up to a portico, supported by columns. On either sides of the steps were statues of Pegasus with outstretched hooves holding a book.
This is the first library at Cloudsdale.
Fluttershy explained, ringing her host.
It's, our first library, and the oldest too. So hopefully you'll find something useful inside.
Good job, Fluttershy, Twilight said, bounding up to the entrance. If there are books dating back to Equestria's founders, then there has to be something about the Tempest Crown. She reached the top and quickly motioned for the others to join her. Sunset trailed up the steps behind Fluttershy, waving the Stouser waltzing over her. Whoa, déjà vu. She shook her head out of it and kept walking, and wanting to give the others more reasons to worry about her. The inside of the library was an immense rectangular room, with rows and rows of books stepped from one side to the other. A second-story balcony wrapped around the room, holding several more bookcases, while a central skylight hung overhead, letting the rays of the afternoon sun in. Like most of Cloudsdale, the interior of the library was a light shade of blue. Twilight approached the desk, where a middle-aged stallion was stamping books. He had a gray coat and wavy black mane. Small circular glasses sat on the bridge of his nose. Twilight cleared his throat and said, Ahem. Excuse me. The stallion looked up and nearly fell out of his air. Princess Twilight Sparkle! Oh my, it's an honor to meet you, Your Highness. He stammered before attempting to bow, only to hit his head on the desk. Oh my gosh, are you alright? The librarian waved it off. Oh no, I mean, yes. Don't you worry about me. What brings you to Cloudsdale, Your Highness?
Well, we're here to do some very important research. I think your library may have some of the answers we're looking for.
Oh, splendid. You come to the right place, Princess. We have some of the largest nicest books in Celestia. And of course, I'm more than willing to assist you. You can go your lucky way. Now, what can I find for you?
Well, I think it would be best to start with some of your early equestrian history books. Maybe some mythology books, too. So I said thoughtfully.
Milky Way caught themselves. Excellent, excellent. Right this way, Your Highness. He watched from behind the desk and beckoned him along. Sunset followed behind Twilight, looking between the rows of books. At the other end of the cells was a small collection of desks and chairs, where a cloaked figure was hunched over an open book. Sunset stopped and looked at the pony. Her heart began to pound in her chest like a drum.
It's her. It has to be her.
The figure stood up as it was only seeing Sunset. It slowly turned around and faced her, face completely hidden by the hood, but the alicorn amulet was clearly visible, gleaming with its eerie red light. The two stared at each other, neither daring to move. Sunset could feel an odd, almost familiar aura off of the pony in front of her. Adrenaline rushed through Sunset's veins, heightening her senses. She could feel the magic in her horn cracking as she readied herself for whatever Vesper Radiance had planned.
Sunset?
Flashlight called. In a brief instant, Sunset had been distracted. A red beam erupted from Vesper Radiance's hood, and rushed to meet Sunset. Her own magic came to life as she fired a teal beam of her own. Jets of light connected to the middle of the row, but none was slowly dominating over the blue. Sunset could already feel the strain from magic on her horn. She decided to try and push a boulder, only the boulder pushed back.
Sunset!
Twilight cried, rushing to her side. Sunset, what's going on?
It's her! It's...
Sunset cut her sentence as a large table sailed down the aisle towards her. She quickly ended her beam and threw up a bubble shield. The impact of the table of Vesper's magic sent her flying backwards to the front wall, where the shield broke. Sunset slid down the wall and groaned, rubbing her head.
Hey!
Twilight yelled, as Vesper Radiance took off towards the stairs, seeming to glide across the floor. Twilight followed her, blasting bolts of magic in between the bookshelves. Vesper began countering with her own spells, and jets of red and purple magic began to crisscross with each other, hitting the books and turning into ash. Milky Way gave her a shriek of terror as he sight for his ruined literature, and jumped back behind his desk to hide. Sunset took off her grogginess in time to see Vesper reach the stairs and sling a bolt of magic into the glass skylight, shattering into pieces. Seeing the fallen glass, Fluttershy grabbed Spike into a protective embrace and used her wings to block the shrapnel, while Twilight used her shield to protect herself. Sunset got to her hose and powered up horn, Fancy reappeared on the second floor, behind Vesper. Sunset quickly built up a pressure of magic and fired a field of pure energy, while he had a rebound of a red shield face. Vesper turned around. Quick flash of her horn, several books fly out of the shelves and started to attack Sunset like a flock of angry birds. Sunset swatted and blasted them. For every one that went down, two more took its place. So you could faintly see Vesper's black cloak through a hurricane of books. A dark red spear of energy formed the tip of her horn. Sunset's eyes widened as a trail of fire spewed forth from Vesper's hood, beginning to scenery the books on the first floor. Bone red flames seemed to jump from book to book, engulfing them entirely, creating a larger blaze as normally should be possible. Gritting her teeth, Sunset gathered the magic from her horn, wrapped it around her body, before expelling it outwards, scattering the offending books all across the library. As he charged at Vesper, who brought the whip of fire around Sunset's head. Sunset slid underneath it, and the fire continued onwards, hitting the nearby bookshelves and setting him alight. To try attacking the amulet, only to see her spell absorbed by the red crystal. Vesper Radiance let out a snicker of amusement. Idiot. Salty stepped before Sunset fell, a huff connected to the side of her face. She rolled across the floor and held her huff to her cheek, tasting the tang of copper on the inside. She looked up to see Vesper looming over her, face still hidden by the hood. I don't know who you think you are, she said over the growling roar of the flames consuming the building, her voice filled with pure flame. And now you're going down with the rest of them. She lifted her head, shot an electric charge towards the ceiling. Burst of light, she was gone, leaving Sunset alone on the second floor. Smoke rapidly clouded the library, leaving a curtain of haze and turning everything coal black. Sunset found herself in the back of the rooms of Canterlot, castle ablaze, lungs clogged with acid until she realized the air she was breathing was rather fresh. She stared at the black smog when it finally hit her. She wasn't looking at smoke. She was looking at a wall of clouds making at the building. They were black like a thundercloud. An arc of lightning shot up to the floor beneath her, prompting her to touch her host. Pain stabbed at her, causing her to wince. He had the bookshelves burning behind her was beginning to sense her firm. She got over the railing, scanning for her friends amongst the burning pyres of dying tomes.